Hey Facebook, this is attorney Tim Anderson. Good morning on November 15th, 2019 here in Hampton Roads. Rainy day today, so hope you're staying dry. This video is going to be about 5 or 10 minutes long, and we're going to talk about restorations of firearms for convicted felons. Now, I'm going to walk you through the process and tell you how it generally works. This is a good video for somebody to watch if they're a convicted felon or if they're overly curious about how convicted felons get their rights restored back in Virginia. Now, this is going to be kind of an interactive video. I'm going to screenshot some screens on my computer for you to understand generally how the process works. So first off, in order to get your rights restored as a convicted felon in Virginia, you first have to get your voting rights restored. Now, most voting rights were restored to convicted felons in 2016 by then Governor McAuliffe, who restored multiple felons' rights to votes in a very broad, sweeping order. That got challenged, but nonetheless, a lot of people got their rights to civil rights restored as convicted felons probably in 2016. Now, if you haven't got those rights restored in 2016, here's the first step of what you have to do. I'm going to flip my computer around here so you can see the screen. And you need to go to the Secretary of State's website. Now, here's the website for that address, restore.virginia.gov. All right. So you go here and you click down here to this box right here, which is check the status of your civil rights. Okay. That's going to populate a new screen. And then basically you're going to load in information about your name, your birth date, and the last four of your social security number, and you're going to hit search. Now, when you do that, it's going to come up and it's going to say whether or not you've been restored or not. Now, if you have not been restored or your name doesn't populate there, then you're going to come right here to request your rights to be restored. All right. Essentially, in order to get your voting rights restored, you must have that step done first. Now, that is nothing you need a lawyer for. You can get your voting rights restored by the governor, even if you don't care about gun rights. You can get your voting rights restored by the governor as soon as you are off of probation and you have paid all of your court fines for your felony criminal right. So once you're off probation, once your fines are paid, court costs are paid, you can petition to vote again. It is not a big deal in Virginia. The current governor gives pretty much everybody their rights to vote back, whether you're a violent offender, a non-violent offender, whether your felony occurred recently or whether your felony occurred 30 years ago, you're going to get your voting rights back from the current administration. And obviously, that's a very important step. So that's going to give you every civil right back except the right to own a firearm. So your right to vote, your right to serve on a jury, your right to run for public office, those civil rights get restored by going through that court process. So restore.virginia.gov. Important to start there to get that done. Now, if your rights have been restored, we need the letter from the governor. If you do not have that letter, you have to contact the governor's office to get it. And in order to do that, you go through that same process. And here, I'm going to put this back up here. Here is the phone number for you to get that number. You contact them up and you say, I would like to get a copy of the letter that restored my voting rights. So if your name populates on the status of that civil rights, and you don't have the letter, that's how you get it. Okay, so that's the first step. Now, once you are trying to get your gun rights back, what then has to happen is a petition has to be filed with the court in the county where you live. It doesn't matter where the felony occurred, it's the county where you live. Now, if you are an out-of-state resident, then you file the petition in the county where your felony occurred. But that's only if you're out of state. If you're in state, you file in the county where you live, not where the felony occurred. Now, a lot of you post comments on our Facebook that this can be done on your own, that you don't need an attorney. That is true. Many of the court systems have petitions where you can do this on your own. But When you file the petition, it is not a guarantee that you are going to get your rights back. When you file a petition, the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, which is the prosecutor's office, gets assigned to the case. And in every case that I've ever dealt with in 20 years, they are opposing those rights to get that restored. So a lot of people say, oh, you can just go to the clerk's office and pay $100 and you don't need a lawyer. Well, what's going to happen is once you file the petition, that is going to go to the court, and then they're going to give you a hearing date, and then you're going to have to go to court and argue your case to the judge, and the prosecutor is going to be on the other side, and they're going to be arguing the case as to why you shouldn't get your rights back. Now, sometimes the prosecutors will come in and they'll consent because maybe it was like a grand larceny charge from 40 years ago, but most of the time they don't. Most of the time they oppose it, and most of the time they're going to take whatever steps they can to interfere with you. And that is what you're going up against. So if you choose to represent yourself, you are going to be walking into a circuit courtroom with a circuit court judge with a prosecutor on the other side. It is not like you fill out this application and it automatically happens. And when you go to court, you have to make relevant arguments about your historical life, where you are currently, and why it would be safe for you to own and possess a firearm moving forward. So it is mostly a matter of issues and a matter of facts. And if you don't get the correct information in front of the judge, the prosecutor's office will jump on that. So most people hire lawyers to do that. Everything in the law is something you can generally try to do yourself. You can represent yourself for a murder case if you want to. You can represent yourself in a bankruptcy if you want to. You can handle your gun petition if you want to. But most of the time, the reason lawyers are in the equation is to make sure that you're getting the best professional representation to try to get that case moving in the direction that you want to move forward. If your case is denied, nothing bad comes out of that. It means that you're in the same place you are when you started. But if your case is denied, you then can't come hire a lawyer and try to do it again. There's going to be some waiting periods that you're going to have to wait. So it is an important time of your life to try to get that back. And a lot of people ask me, when should I try to do that? Here's the general answer. There's nothing in the code that says you have to wait 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. There's nothing in the code that says whether you should be a violent offender or a non-violent offender. None of that exists. Basically, it just says is once the governor has given you your voting rights back and you've paid all your court fines and you've discharged your sentence, which means you're not on probation, then you can petition to get your gun rights back. However, if you have a recent felony, the judges are resistant, not all the time, but many times resistant about giving people their gun rights back if you had a felony 3 or 4 years ago. So the longer you wait, the better chance you have of getting your rights restored. The other thing that is very important for you to understand is that your right is only restored in Virginia. So it does not give you any general rights to be able to go into other states and own firearms. Whether or not you can own firearms and possess firearms in other states is determined by that state's law. For instance, in North Carolina, you have to petition and get your rights restored there to be able to own and possess a firearm down there. So if you're a convicted felon and you go through a Virginia proceeding and then you move to North Carolina, you got to go through a similar proceeding in North Carolina as a general rule for North Carolina residents. And so you have to understand that your petition only is good in Virginia. But if it is granted, you will be fully restored to own, purchase, and possess a firearm. If you have a cocaine charge from 8 years ago and you've lived a good life since and you haven't gotten in any trouble, you have a pretty good chance of getting your gun rights back. If you have a cocaine charge from 20 years ago, you have an even better chance because more time has passed and the court can see that you're a respectable citizen now and you've rehabilitated appropriately. If you have a cocaine charge from 2 years ago, then the judge may say, I'm not so sure if you should get your rights back. I don't know if you're going to be a good citizen. I want more time between your conviction date and present. Now, there's no rhyme or reason. Every judge is different. Some judges are more liberal, some judges are more conservative, some judges like guns, some judges don't. Some judges take the position that as soon as the governor gives you your rights back, they'll give you your rights back. Other judges say you need to be 20 years away from your felony before you're going to get your rights back from me. So that's where having a lawyer comes in. That's where it comes in handy, is having somebody who knows how it works. We do gun right cases all over the state. I've been in pretty much every county in Virginia for gun rights cases, or dealt with the courts in some way. We have a huge breadth. I'm pretty sure there's not a court system in Virginia that we haven't stepped foot in for some kind of a legal reason over the past 20 years. So having somebody who knows the ins and outs of the court system is very important to understand what your rights are. Now, finally, here's the big question. Is any of this going to change in 2020? Don't know. However, there's nobody talking about it right now, at least publicly in Richmond. So I don't think that there are big changes. And if you're a convicted felon, I don't think you have to rush in and hire us right now to do it. But it could. And if it does change, it's going to change pretty quickly. They pass laws in January and February, and those laws change in July. So we will be watching that and see if anything's going to happen. Doesn't look like it right now, but it may. Once you hire us, we usually will have you in court within about 3 to 4 months. So it is something that does not take long, and we will give you payments if you want to use our office. Somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500 to do a case like this. It's not a tremendous amount of money to have somebody professionally doing it and making sure you get these rights back that you should have back. So my name's Tim Anderson. My phone number is 800-1000. Hope that brings some clarity. I always tell people a lot of times you don't need a lawyer. In fact, if you Google my name, Tim Anderson, in Virginia Beach, and read some of the negative reviews. Almost all of the negative reviews are people saying, he told me I could handle this on my own, or he told me that I didn't have a good case and I shouldn't move forward. I get negative reviews because I tell people how to do things on their own. The gun right thing, I think it is worth it to have a lawyer just because there's a prosecutor on the other side. And if you want to use us, we'd be happy to represent you. Again, today's November 15th. I'll update you if we hear anything new from Richmond about these laws changing. Take care.